Hello again, everybody. We're glad that you decided to join us tonight. We're excited to share another lesson with you. We've been doing these strong series of lessons. We're on week 3. Week 1, we talked about the fact that we can find strength in God by remembering what He's done for us in the past. And last week we talked about how we can use that strength in order to fight off fear and anxiety and those sorts of things so that we can set the right example for other people, so that we can influence other people for good.
This week we are talking about obedience, which might not always be the best topic to talk about unless maybe you're a parent of a terrible 2 or a couple of teenagers. Brian, be honest with me. If we were sitting in a room and I said, hey, let's have a conversation about obedience, and you know that me and you normally talk about sports and stuff like that, would you find a reason to leave the room?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it would be difficult to just sit down and have a conversation about obedience with somebody. That's not a comfortable conversation. But you know who we thought really does not like hearing about obedience is your kids, right? Kids and teenagers, they don't really always understand why. Why do I have to clean my room? Why do I have to keep my feet off the coffee table? Why? And that got us to thinking, as hard as it is trying today to raise kids, can you imagine what it might be like to try and raise your kids in some of the circumstances that we read about in the Bible? Bobby, time to pack up your things.
Let me finish this match.
No, it's time to go. We've got to leave Egypt.
We're leaving Egypt?
Are we there yet? We've been walking for like 40 years. Moses even know where he's going?
Bobby, quit.
What? When Moses did it, he got water to come out.
Can I go over to Mishael's to eat?
No, we have enough manna for us. They have enough manna for their family.
I don't want to eat any more manna. I'd rather eat this pine cone. Is it kosher?
Bobby, don't touch that.
What? It's not the Ark of the Covenant.
Bobby, bring me those posts.
Why am I even having to help with this?
Because we're building the tabernacle.
No one could have built this faster. The Levites should be helping you do this anyways.
Okay, Bobby, tell them what you want to eat.
One bacon cheeseburger.
But we can't have bacon. We're Israelites.
Shrimp scampi.
What? You can't have that either.
Ostrich omelet.
No.
Barbecue sandwich.
Stop.
Fine, a bacon cheeseburger.
Bobby, time to get up, Bobby.
Why?
It's time to go walk around the walls of Jericho again.
We did that yesterday. It's like the 7th day in a row.
That would certainly be challenging. I praise parents now for how they do it. I would not want to do it back then. It's not always easy to get your kids to do what you want. When I was student teaching, there were many times when I was trying to get the kids to do what I wanted them to do, and they simply would not do it. And it's because they don't always understand that there's a reason behind what they're doing. You've got to understand your multiplication facts. That way you can get further. But they sometimes don't understand that. But we've been thinking, kids aren't the only ones that struggle with this.
Right. Adults, we don't always like to talk about obedience either. Sometimes we don't understand why God wants things the way that He wants them, or why He doesn't want certain things. The do's and the don'ts, they don't always make sense to us. But it's in those situations that I think it's important for us to remember the words of the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 1, a word about the wisdom of God. Starting with verse 20 of 1 Corinthians 1, listen to what it says. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preach to save those who believe.
Yes, let's remember that God's wisdom is so much greater than ours. And we can trust Him even when we don't understand the why behind it. But it's not always about the why. We can understand why we need to do something. I understand that I need to clean the dishes, but growing up, I did not know how to clean the dishes, and that frustrated my parents, but I've since learned. But sometimes it's the how. We understand why, but we don't understand how. We know God expects us to do certain things in our lives, and we may know we may know why to do those things, but we may not know how to do those things.
Yeah, and I think that's where the main passage for us this week really comes into play. Understanding how am I going to be able to do what God has asked me to do. Last week we looked at Joshua chapter 5, and we saw that Rahab helped the spies, and we saw the changes that brought about for her life. But this week we're in chapter 6 of Joshua, and the people of Israel have come up to Jericho, and at the beginning of the chapter we're told that the entire city is closed up. It's inaccessible. And so the question then is, well, how are we ever going to be able to take over this city? Well, we find that God has a very unusual plan. He tells the Israelites, I want you to walk around the city day after day after day for 6 days, and I want you to do it in complete silence. Okay? And then on that 7th day, that's what we're going to read in Joshua chapter 6, starting with verse 15. So let's read together Joshua 6, starting with verse 15. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. And the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted them, you take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction and bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city.
Can you imagine all the questions going through the minds of the Israelites as they're walking around Jericho? How are we ever going to take down this city when the walls are so high? How does walking around the city help us actually win this battle? Why do we have to be completely silent? Why can't we yell threats at them and at least scare them a little? But against all human knowledge or wisdom, they obeyed God, and it worked.
And that's really what we want to drive home for you tonight. The idea that obedience to God may not always make sense to us. It may not always be easy for us, like Jericho. The people of Israel didn't really understand what was going on, and it certainly isn't always going to make sense to the rest of the world. We think of things like forgiving others instead of striking back, being willing to put others' needs ahead of our own, thinking of things like sharing the gospel message at every chance that we get. Those are things that don't always make sense to the rest of the world. They're not always easy to do, but they are the will of God, and that is what we are expected to do. And if we can remain strong in our obedience to God, again, like at Jericho, God can accomplish great things in our lives. And it's not because of our strength or our abilities. It's because of how powerful our God is.
So whether you've been struggling with the why or the how of obedience to God, put your faith in the wisdom and the power of God. Remaining strong will lead to good things. We hope that this message has been uplifting to you guys. We hope to see you soon. We get closer every day, so we'll see you soon.